Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 Index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed right here on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this afternoon, we have Shawn, Cruz, Manager of Trader Services at TD Ameritrade, to discuss Nasdaq-100 performance as volatility ticks a touch higher. And Shawn, let's take a look at what vol is suggesting in terms of the swings we can expect to see in the index, because from a fundamental perspective, we certainly know there's a number of outliers on the horizon, but what are you seeing in the charts there?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been interesting to start to look and see what levels are holding, not just for the index overall, but some of the individual names. I do think it's very encouraging to see that we're able to get back up above this 1100 level. So I think 1100 could be a key level to watch moving forward. Looking at what's really being priced in here, at least in the options market as far as potential ranges, it looks like they're pricing in 2% or a little bit over 2% for a potential one-day move out of these indices, at least for the foreseeable future. I would point out that actually has come down a decent amount from being just over 2.5% a few weeks ago. So I think it's encouraging to see implied volatility bagging off. I think it actually is a good read through to also see that relationship between what we're seeing markets do in terms of price moves and what we're seeing the options market indicate. Is recall in the run up in August, we actually saw implied volatility moving higher as a lot of these major indices were charging to new record highs as well. And that's typically not the relationship you expect to play out. It should definitely signal some warning signs. So seeing that relationship at least return to a little bit of normalcy. And as we are seeing the NASDAQ rebound a little bit after getting down or below that 10,800 level, seeing it rebound from that and seeing the implied volatility measures start to back off and roll over here a little bit is also encouraging, just in terms of what it can tell us about uncertainty or apprehension from investors.
It's really interesting, Shawn, you bring that up, where we saw the run up in the index as well as in volatility. In fact, we saw that in the S&P and the VIX as well. That it makes sense. You had retail buying calls, you had institutions buying puts. Of course, it's going to make it more expensive, right? But also on the somewhat of a recovery that we've been seeing with the index moving lower, vol also came in a bit as well. We noticed that in the beginning of the week. So I'm wondering, or on Friday, if that was kind of a precursor to some of the recovery that we're seeing today. So I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, especially as we go through the election, just exactly how these patterns play out. Now, I want to talk about Tesla Battery Day, and I think it's really interesting that it's getting this kind of notoriety, because there have been other days that we saw in the past, like Quant Day and things that we just use in commonplace now. So it makes you wonder, just as if Tesla turned the auto industry on its head, what this means for EV and battery going forward.
It does. And so there's really three things that I'm looking at, and I seem to hear a lot of analysts in one way, shape, or form reference. And one is looking at the battery technology they unveiled. That's the big thing there. They're looking for that $100 per kilowatt hour achievement out of Tesla. And they're saying if they do, that would be a massive breakthrough for the industry that just a few years back they thought we were not going to achieve anytime soon. It's a big deal because it actually makes electric vehicles significantly more affordable for the population at large, and that can drive a lot of volumes here. And that would be a big deal, I think, across the industry as well, not just for Tesla. And so that sort of brings into the second point that a lot of people are looking at, and they're looking for some sort of an update in terms of partnerships, and not just partnerships in the electric battery space, but also partnerships potentially with some of the other manufacturers out there. Is Tesla maybe now going to start supplying those batteries to a lot of these other manufacturers? Because if you were a company like GM, Ford, anybody out there trying to get out and get a presence in the electric vehicle space, affordability would really be big for you. And I think if they can partner with Tesla, that might actually give them the ability to now offer those electric vehicles to a larger population at a more affordable price that would drive inclusion there. So that's the big thing. And then the third thing is going to sort of tie both those in, and that is the timing. Whatever they announce, are we going to get a better picture of not only when they're going to be doing that, but is that one going to be a little too far out where maybe investors and analysts aren't happy, or is it going to be closer, which could drive more optimism? I would say you're not typically used to Elon Musk giving it sort of a cautious tone going into things, but he sort of set expectations. We're going to announce something that's pretty cool, but don't expect it until 2022. So I think that's the other piece to look for there. But I think if you look around the industry, there's a lot more new entrants into this market. If you think about what some of those new entrants are doing and some of the strategies they're pursuing, you could look at Nikola. Had a lot of news lately, but I think the big piece out of Nikola was that they are still going to be moving forward with the partnership with GM. The former vice chair of GM will be on the Nikola board. Mm-hmm. So I think what that shows is that there's some new ways that these electric vehicle companies that are really driving that battery technology are finding a way to get uses for their products. So I almost would imagine with more entrants coming in, if Tesla's a defensive move, sort of goes out there and starts locking down relationships with some of these manufacturers, you sort of you pull the punch bowl away from a lot of the other people who are maybe hoping to achieve that someday themselves if they can beat them to it. But there's certainly a lot of potential price swings expected not only today, but just over the next couple of weeks and months. And if you look at the chart we pulled up here, it sort of gives you an idea of what were the one standard deviation, what the sort of a probable range for Tesla to trade in moving forward. And if we just go out to say, mid-October, you could be up to 550, or they're saying you could be down to just under 300. So I do think, a lot of news out of Tesla should actually drive some volatility, but it'll be interesting to see which way it breaks based off of what they say.
Right. Well, that's why it's good to have a read into the options market, even if you only take a look at equity trading. But Shawn, you brought up a really good point. And it was your third point about Musk pushing it out to 2022. And I've had a number of EV companies on my show today, and they brought up a good point that I'm surprised that the analyst community has not digested it as well. That when you're putting stuff, especially to American automobiles, the time that it takes for regulatory approval, and it's just a very slow moving industry. So I wonder if that's part of it as well, that it's not just something, okay, here's what we have, technology works great, and then boom, it's on the road. Yeah. It takes time to get that approval for scale. So I'm wondering if that's kind of what he's saying in between the lines.
Yeah, I think that it will be interesting to see, really, and that's why I said the details of what they announced today. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how that plays out, because you're right, it's not as simple as here's a new battery, pull the old one out, put this one in there, you'll right. have more range or more affordable pricing. So if you are, though, an analyst or an investor, and you're looking maybe a little bit more in the long term, Tesla making, I think that's why that first point we brought up was, getting that, $100 per kilowatt hour battery out there. I think if you're looking in the long run, that would be a significant development. Like I said, that a lot of people did not think was possible, at least this soon. So I think that can actually drive a lot of long run investor optimism if they're able to come out there and announce, here's what we have, here's what we're going to partner with, and then here's a timeline. That's a lot of certainty that you now bring to the table. And when you start to get some of that certainty priced into something that's forward looking like that, you actually might see that drive up valuations a little bit more. So it'll certainly be something interesting to watch.
All right, Shawn, great stuff as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.